Hello and welcome everyone to the Reality Game Forum Survivor podcast. Colin is out tonight, so I'll be hosting tonight. I'm Patrick. With me tonight, join me is Steven,
Hello.
Prince Ty,
Good evening.
Alex Cash,
Howdy.
Alicia Garza, the Latina flavor. Have to add that.
Hey, y'all. Yeah, I was about to be like, oh, I guess you don't think nearly as high of us as Colin does, because he showers us with compliments in our intro.
I mean, it's kind of a staple at this point, Latina flavor.
I know.
And Jack.
Hello there. You are Spanish.
So, what an exciting, nail-biting episode of Survivor San Juan del Sur. Right, everyone?
Yes.
You guys, it just occurred to me that it's literally all white guys and me. No wonder I'm so important to
Much like the cats.
Someone call Dante, and we'll get him in on next week.
Two minorities left in the cat. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Talk about homogeneous.
So yeah, it was just
Sorry, Colin, editing right off the bat.
What an exciting and thrilling episode with lots of backstabbing, cheating, lying, and blindsides, right?
Totally.
Yeah. I guess we were talking before. It was an okay episode until the end, where Alex Cash brilliantly pointed out that it had in a big wet fart. But we're at the merge point at this point, and I want to talk about how this season is ranking up, and if it's up to snuff with previous seasons, especially the previous Blood vs. Water. And my opinion is that it's not nearly as good, and I want to know your opinions and why. Start with you, Ty.
Well, I'm a little bit biased because I've been so correct about everything to this point that I've naturally enjoyed the season a little bit better. But
You would.
in terms of like overall excitement, I would say it's not been as good as the most recent seasons. Not even comparing it to the last Blood vs. Water, where you were seeing people you cared about play again. Everybody was happy that Horace was back and excited about the dynamic there. You could go on and on. Tina was back. Everybody loves Tina, so on and so forth. Not even comparing it to that. Last season we had all new people, and everybody got screen time. Everybody, at some point or another, seemed important. There are three important people at this point. There's John, there's Ginger Gay, and there's Jeremy. And everyone else is just kind of floating around amongst
Background
them.
characters.
Some people did have better episodes last night. Missy brought some game. I feel like that was to punish Stephen Lehman for not following the old hag as he's. But on the whole, it's been about three people. One of those three is going to win, and we already know which one, but we'll get to that later.
Does anyone have any other thoughts? Do you think it's worse?
It's
better?
okay. It's not great, but it's okay.
It's solidly okay. It's not like Redemption Island levels of bad, but it's not like Kagiyan levels of this is really enjoyable and I like this.
What is making it just so mediocre? Is it the editing?
I feel like it's not spread out enough.
For me personally, I'm not really rooting or connecting with any of the castaways.
Yeah.
There's no one I'm
Yeah.
like really pulling for, really interested in what they have to say. I'm just kind of watching it because it's Survivor,
Yeah.
not because the
Yeah.
season is particularly compelling.
Well, we
Yeah,
saw.
like-
I'm rooting for Keith and Wes just because I find their mannerisms amusing, and they're from Shreveport, and so am I. The thing I would say the bright side to this season is that, there are three major characters, but it feels like the kind of season where, I would disagree with Ty in that it's not I don't necessarily think that one of those three major characters is going to win.
Who
like-
else is going to win? Who
It's
else
so
is
up in
champion?
the air because there's so little strategizing going on that anything could happen, ironically.
I think
Right,
there was
or
a-
alternatively, there's only a chance that one of the three people who are playing the game right now will end up winning the thing.
the thing about it, though, about this episode that was such a boner killer, was that we don't know which side is going to have the power, which will determine the end of the game. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Hold on.
What was I gonna say? I don't know. I guess to continue to talk about what we've been talking about, I am not a giant fan of this season.
Why is that?
I feel like all of the characters individually aren't nearly as compelling as a lot of the characters we've had in the past. I feel like they don't have as much personality, or if they do, it's not shining through as much. And I wonder if part of that reason is because they're concentrating so much on the actual, like, mechanics of their Survivor experience, because they have, like, I don't know how to explain it. They're concentrating on, like, the trading that's going on with, like, the rice, or they're concentrating on a particular, like, matchup and a walk towards Redemption Island and, like, being at Redemption Island, and they're concentrating on the challenge itself, and they're not really...
This episode was unique in the fact that they didn't have to spend that last segment on a tribal council. And so I thought there could have been a lot more character development, and maybe there was with certain people. Like, we saw more of Missy and Baylor.
Well, we saw more Missy being smart as opposed to Missy.
Yeah, this was probably the high of the episode for me, was that we got to see Missy kind of strategizing and really thinking about how to approach things and how to handle things with people, which I didn't think she was capable of at all with her interactions with Dale. So that was nice to see, but I just feel like they could have given us so much more with all of the extra time they had with Julie quitting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And I feel like they probably would have shown us more Missy if she wasn't on the wrong side.
But, you know, they had to fit in all of the trail mix stuff to give Julie a reason.
Trail mix scandal.
Yeah, to give Julie a reason to go. But we can get back more on that later. But I wanted to ask and pull and see, was it the right decision to pull Redemption Island instead of having the reward challenges with the Exile Island?
Yes, because Redemption Island is fucking terrible, and it allows people who have been voted out to possibly win, which is a fucking abomination to Survivor.
It did add some excitement, I'll admit that, for the first Blood versus Water. The first two times they did it was awful, in my opinion. But does anyone else agree that it could have been a different experience?
Yeah,
I think rootability, like, for characters, because then, you know, even if you weren't very keen on them before, if you see them pull off a particularly impressive Redemption Island win, then you find yourself, like, hoping that they win more of them. And just in general, it's easy to root for someone in those kinds of matchups.
My opinion of whether Redemption Island was a good idea, or like pulling Redemption Island was a good idea or not, will depend on how they handle future reward challenges. Because if they continue to do the artificial duel setup even after Blood versus Water is already, even after the tribe merge, it's just going to be stupid.
Yeah. With the first Blood versus Water having Redemption Island, I thought that was okay because it had moments with people I cared about, but with a cast like this where I'm not, like, invested emotionally in a lot of these people, I'm just like, I kind of like that Exile is there, but I feel like they're utilizing it kind of poorly.
We never see anything from Exile, or we never did. We saw who got the clue, and that's about it. Maybe some conversations here and there, but
it's not like a token chain scenario.
We didn't have a coach
Exile Alliance
moment,
right? Like a coach Dragon Kane, where he has his, like, existential moment of questioning who he is and why he's on this earth. We haven't had a moment like that.
Yeah. So we get to the merge, and they have their feast and everything, which is funny because they traded all that comfort and all their stuff for food. Yeah. They win that reward, and then they get a feast.
Right.
With spicy brownies.
Oh, the brownies spicy?
Yeah, it's something from a secret scene. The sriracha sauce from one of the dishes leaked into the brownies, so they had spicy brownies.
I'm sure they enjoyed the hell out of them anyways.
Right, really.
What a bummer.
And they come up with some stupid name and put a hashtag in front of it.
Hashtag who Yopa.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
it really hurts just to say it.
So, was anyone thinking from... I don't know if it was the preview or just a scene that CBS posted, but they were talking about, like, what's in Julie's bag that has everyone in uproar. I thought for sure it would have been, like, a clue to a hidden immunity idol that was in the feast that she might have like found in some food and then.
That's what I was thinking. Wasn't she holding up the buffs or something? There was like a
Yes, she
paper around
was.
it.
She was the one that was holding them, and so I just assumed that she would find one with a clue in it and like slip it.
I was thinking the same thing.
I was really confused and shocked that it was like the trail mix that was
but we had
so much
we had the trail mix, which I don't know how much significance that had to her quitting. I'm sure there's a lot more behind the scenes that we didn't get to see. Because she seems like a tough chick. I don't know.
Yeah.
She said she was, but
I mean, she's
For
dating
what-
on
for
Rock.
what that's
fair,
worth.
so did V or Victoria or what was Jeremy's spouse's name?
Val.
Val.
Val. There we go. So did Val, and yet she really sucked at like all the challenges. So just because you say you're tough doesn't mean you are.
But I guess since you mentioned it, we should talk about the challenge for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
And this one looked. Have we seen this one before? We've seen similar variations of it, but I don't think it's been in this form before.
Yeah, I think
No,
it
they
was
sort of combined
modified.
multiple challenges. Because they've had in the past where you had a big disc and then you had to balance a ball
Right.
on top of it. But none of this holding a rope out and
Yeah, I
balancing
think it was
that
like
way.
a
So.
stick or something. They had to
A
hold
lot
out.
more difficult than it has been in seasons past.
Yeah. What do y'all think?
Yeah, so
about the
it's like the
challenges?
rollerballs challenge, but there's an extra element to it, and I like that. Like, I will take a challenge that is semi-new over a challenge that is not at all new.
But overall, in this season, what are your opinions of the challenges?
I thought it was hilarious that Keith won.
That's the thing.
that
Is
was
Keith
great.
is Keith
That
now a
was-
certified immunity
That was
whore?
great. When
I mean,
Rick
I don't know if maybe he's just like used to fishing a lot and like staying in the exact same spot, like you're like dual, like
Fishing,
wielding
there's a
fishing
lot of beer
rods or
drinking.
something. But it was so weird how it was Wes and Keith that were so good at that when
Mhm.
you know, I don't know, they didn't seem like the buffest or most endurance-y looking type guys, and yet, you know,
Right.
here they are.
Still.
Well, they kind of foreshadowed or something like Josh needs to win the challenge in order to be safe or whatever. So let's talk about
That's just so that Stephen Lehman could feel good for a little bit.
yeah. Let's talk about the breakdown of the alliances right now. There's the couples. Then
Yes.
there's which includes someone help me.
The couples. Well, here's. Well, I'll get in.
It's a thing, but not
getting
really.
to the
But
point where
it's an idea of John and Jacqueline, Josh
Yes.
and Reed,
Yes.
Missy Baylor, and who else
Wes
is intact?
and
Wes
Wes
and Keith. And then Missy and Baylor are kind of not feeling that. John and Jacqueline
Mr.
are on the
Taylor
fence.
was- Yeah.
Yeah, and then we got Jeremy's crew.
Then you've also got Alec with the pairs because Alec is not with Jeremy. Alec is very much
That's true.
Just not
Why?
really.
which is because they were on the original tribe, and
Okay.
this is something I
Yeah,
wanted
that's
to
my
talk about a
assumption.
little bit later. But I thought Josh's pitch of all the couples sticking together was brilliant because if that actually happens and he manages to control all of the other singles except for Alec getting picked off, then all of a sudden he's got control of the final 9, and Missy and Baylor are fucked, and John and Jacqueline are fucked, and he will take his rednecks to the final 5 and basically be in glorious shape. Let's put it this way. Next week we'll decide who wins the game. If John is stupid enough to stick with that, then my ginger gay is glorious. Either my ginger gay will go next week. There's like a 10% chance that'll happen. But if John sticks by his guns, which I have no reason to think that he won't, because I think they're discussing that couple fighting next week, but I'm pretty sure John will make the decisions because does anyone really think that Jacqueline's going to make the decisions?
Oh yeah, the preview. We'll get into that a little bit later.
But so yeah, I mean it's brilliant, and even if you're bored by Josh, whatever the case may be, the fact that he seemed to have them convinced, that was a great move by him. It was a great move by him. Jeremy overplayed his hand and did Jeremy things, which basically got him on the outs. He overplayed it. It was beautiful.
I think
Beautiful.
I don't
stuff.
know.
And
if
I
it
was right because he's not gone yet. He's not gone.
Well,
You all fell for the preview.
Jack, go ahead.
He was going to be in danger, and then he wasn't gone. Thank you all.
Okay, as Ty has been busy attributing this success of the potential voting to Josh, I think the real turning
Yeah,
point.
because he's the one who did it. What the hell?
No, it was actually Reed. When they were sitting, it was Josh and Reed sitting with John and Jacqueline, and Reed suddenly said, "Jeremy is big on getting out the couples," and immediately John's like, "Oh, really?" And then the very next scene, it's like John and Jacqueline talking about how Jeremy wants the couples out and they should side with the couples.
Because I'm sure Josh didn't have anything else to say about that while they were all talking. I'm sure.
They attributed it to Reed, and
Way to go, Reed. I'm proud of him. He can speak.
just think that was the major tipping point that we saw that caused them to reconsider.
And
their
does anyone think
position.
that Reed's going to win? Is Reed a contender at this point?
I don't know. It's still early.
I don't. No.
Okay, so I just wanted to break down. Of course, I know. Just to inform the viewers, who has idols at the moment?
Keith.
That's about it.
Keith.
Yep.
And how is it going to come into play? Do you think in the near future, or is it at all?
It's not. It's not going to come up.
He hasn't really mentioned anything about having to actually use it yet. So I don't think he'll have to use it
It
at all.
depends.
Or
If his alliance gets bamboozled next episode, then maybe it'll get used sooner rather than later. But I could easily see him. I believe he'll get far now. The way last night's episode went, so I could see him sitting on it until final, whenever you're able to use it.
yeah,
Final 5, I believe, isn't it?
I believe
I presume, but
it's usually 6 or 5. I think it just depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically, idols are usable through day 36, whatever that is.
Sure.
Do you think there are going to be any more idols?
There has to be a merge one at least.
Do you think?
Right.
Yeah, because standard practice has been
one.
one per tribe, and then... Yeah, and also consider, the last time we saw people on Exile Island, there was a new clue, which meant that there was a new idol at both camps.
Oh, so maybe
Or
we
could
just
it
haven't
be
gotten a clue because it's on
John's
Exile.
Yeah.
Now, it said back at your camp, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Well, I would
But
say
maybe the reason we haven't had a new clue for a new idol is because the clue itself is in Exile. So maybe that's the reasoning for
I don't
that.
know. It'll be interesting to see. I'm glad that this season hasn't been so idol heavy
Idol-centric.
as
Yeah.
previous seasons have.
That's what I enjoy.
So that's a plus for San Juan del Sur, in my opinion.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Let's see. We gotta talk about Julie.
Do we?
Julie.
Yeah, we do.
I'm so tired of Survivor giving all of this extra, unwarranted airtime to people that quit. Obviously, they don't view quitters, in a great positive light because
But they
they're
have
going
to.
through
They have
all
to give her a
this
reason.
effort.
They have to give her a reason
Yeah.
to quit and show.
I mean,
her
I
audience.
understand them giving a reason for the quitter that's quitting, but I don't think it needs to be drawn out to such an extent that we're wasting 5 or 6 minutes of an episode all to explain why the quitter quit.
Well,
Particularly if that
understand.
reason is trail mix. I mean, if
yeah.
that reason-
Let's talk
Yeah.
about the trail.
Yeah, the
mix.
reason actually probably is trail mix, because Alec points out in his secret scene that right after he made his little snipe about the trail mix, that was when Julie disappeared and had her conversation with Missy and then quit. So it was right after that.
Well, we have 2 things that we learned, which was the trail mix thing and the conversation with Missy. Which the trail mix was obvious. She wasn't sharing some nuts and berries or whatever.
Well,
Does anyone think that's a big deal? I guess it is on the island.
What I was
Yeah,
going to say is that
it's a big deal because it's like hiding an idol, except you can't eat idols.
Yeah, they're all starving, but
see what I was thinking was that at the merge feast, I mean, if Julie was going to take some back with her, couldn't they have done the same thing and
They
taken some stuff with them?
They did do the same thing.
And they
all
shared.
brought the food back, and they, just
Well,
ate it.
Yeah,
They
they
pulled
all
it, yeah.
ate it
And
right
Julie
away.
chose
rationed
not
her
to
own
eat
food,
what she
right?
had brought back, and so
Okay, so then I guess I don't see
Honestly,
why
I
you
mean,
I
I
have a
think
kind of see
hot dog.
everyone as a little bit of a hypocrite because I'm sure that they all had like food
Right.
that maybe Julie didn't, and Julie was like just because Julie didn't, I guess, squander it all, for lack of a better word, suddenly she's made out to be this like terrible person.
Beef.
And she
When
was
really, like,
she was
all
rationing for
of
Yeah,
the
herself.
she's
rest of
rationing her
them
own portion
are
quite
just really
well.
hypocritical,
Yeah.
I think.
But
at the end of the day, none of them liked Julie, and this gave them a reason to really rag on her.
well,
And they
Right.
no,
did,
you can't say none of
and
them. Like, I mean, maybe on a personal level, but there were
I
people
I
counting
feel
on
like
her.
no one saw I feel like no one really saw her as anything more than a number,
Yeah,
and I think
that's
that might have
exactly,
gotten to Julie
Steven.
because sorry.
That's exactly the point I was going to bring up. Was that we had a conversation with Missy, and
yeah.
Missy just spells it out plain and clear.
Missy
Just
clearly
stay,
couldn't have given two shits about her as a
yeah.
person.
Hey,
So,
stay for
I
this
kind of
vote.
loved
Quit
it.
tomorrow.
it
It's
was great.
fine.
It was great.
I love that she was
You
being
can
so
quit
stone cold
tomorrow.
bitch about it. You know, she's just like,
Well, and
look,
Jeremy was also talking in one of his confessionals about how Julie was simply a number for him, but it was a
right,
number that he needed.
but he
I
was a
don't
lot
know.
less transparent to her face. He was a lot nicer, like, you can do
He
it,
was.
Julie, don't leave. You know,
I
Well,
mean,
it'd be
I'm-
Missy was
interesting
just
though if their placation or lack thereof ends up being their downfall because they couldn't make Julie feel like a person, and then they just fall one vote short of their
I mean,
domination.
I'm just disappointed, I guess, that
Hashtag-
Julie didn't stand up for herself. She calls herself like a tough woman, like a strong woman, and obviously she's dating someone who's rough around the edges. And I mean, I'd like to think she doesn't let him just like order her around all the time. I'd like to think she can hold her own, and that's why they've been dating for so long. But for her to just be like put down by Alec and kind of disrespected by and like disregarded by everyone, and then for her to just like slink off and quit. I just didn't think that portrayed her in a very positive light, and I would have respected her a lot more had she come back and been like, you know what, like, I'm a human being, and I don't think you are treating me like that, and that is really, like, disrespectful and appalling, and, like, fuck you guys, basically.
Yeah, well, a lot
See,
of
part of me-
these people don't think so rationally, and
part of me thinks
When they're
that's
on the
actually
game.
why she quit, as it was a final fuck you, kind of like a Janu thing in Palau.
Yeah.
Except without as much guilting from Probst. Whereas, to draw a parallel here, in Palau, Janu quit to save Stephanie. Whereas here, I feel like Julie just was kind of like, look, I don't want to be around you guys, so fuck you. So she went out on her terms, so good for her. I wish she had not, like Alicia said, made it as drawn out as it was, but I don't fault her for leaving on her own terms.
did anyone else find it strange the way that Jeff Probst came in and handled the entire situation? Like, earlier seasons, he would have chewed someone out.
I think it's because
Well, he
she's
did.
in John
He
Rocker.
didn't chew out Lindsay that badly either.
Yeah, I think it's a later thing, and I think maybe season 16 when Crazy Kathy quit, Jeff Probst said somewhere that was the first time I legitimately believe someone had to be off that island, like they had to go, because Crazy Kathy was out of her mind.
Well, yeah. Fair enough.
I think
But maybe he's
Probst
gotten soft.
I think Probst said that at some point he realized, looking back, that they made a mistake in casting people like, say a Julie or a Lindsay, where they knew that they were not necessarily in the right place to stick it out for the game, and that ultimately the responsibility falls on him or casting. So maybe that's why he's gotten a bit less of a hard ass on quitters, because he realizes he has part of the casting say.
Or maybe he saw that she was just throwing herself like a big pity party of one and like didn't feel like adding to it.
That's fair.
I don't know. I just thought
I
it was
think
kind
he
of
took his shots more subtly, but I don't think he was nice to her. I think he was more
it
subtle
wasn't
about
like
it. But I don't know anything specific. But he certainly didn't show her any pity or
Right.
feel sorry.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't like a comforting presence.
No,
but
he was.
You don't
no.
expect him to be.
No.
But it wasn't as vitriolic as like a Purple Kelly and Nayanka quit.
Well,
by any means.
that one was really terrible.
or
So
Colton quit.
Yeah.
Oh well, he was just awful to Colton, but that's another animal.
Anyways,
Cool.
to me, this whole episode was kind of a letdown because it was the big show off between Josh and Jeremy. and it was climaxing to that, and then it's just boom. I mean, I saw the clock, and there was about 10 minutes left in the episode, and they haven't gone to tribal.
It was narration
Yeah,
blue balls.
I noticed the same thing.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna suck.
Well, see, it sort of for me drew a parallel to Tokenshin in a sense, because in Tokenshin you have the coach camp versus the Brendan camp, and you have an anticlimactic medevac. In this case, you have an anticlimactic quit, and it's sort of like the big storylines are kind of on hold for next week.
But see, I mean, the ending was just,
It felt really odd.
Maybe it was bad for me because Julie was such an insignificant character. Like many of the other people are more supporting roles than, like Ty pointed out, 3 main roles or characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems so insignificant after all that build up.
Yeah, and I mean, don't forget, Joe was also kind of irrelevant in Tokenshin.
He sure was. He sure was.
But yeah, I don't know how much more we can add to talking about Julie. But we can talk about secret scenes that happen in there if there's anything.
Alrighty, thank
Alex?
you. So the secret scene that is actually a scene and not just a confessional, basically some leftover strategy talk from the episode about Jeremy and Natalie strategizing to get rid of Josh and Reed. Natalie had a couple of good quotes in that scene. She said that I'm glad that everybody sees that they're evil and not just me, which is a good thing. And also said something about not judging people's challenge abilities based on their appearances. Reed may be a good dancer, but Keith is good at, and this may be a direct quote, whatever the hell translates into these random challenges that you can't really prepare for.
Yeah.
As far as the tribe, the merge flag, so Reed took credit for the tribe name, which, unoriginal.
Why would anyone take credit for that?
Why would that be a good
I
thing
know,
to take credit
but he
for?
was like, the merge, it's about bringing the two tribes together, so it should be like a dumbass portmanteau of the two names.
Whoever put the damn hashtag in front of it needs to get voted off next, please.
Yeah. So Baylor said she painted most of the merge flag, but Keith did the little figure in the middle, which, everybody has an artistic side. Keith also had a little thing where he miscounted votes, where he said, after tonight, you're going to see where the alliances are. It could be 7-6, 6-6, or 7-5.
God bless Keith.
Oh, Keith. He's really grown.
And also,
he must have gone to the Brad Culpepper School of Math.
and also, I found it interesting that Natalie in the secret scene said Reed is essentially helpless without Josh, and
That
just
doesn't
follows him
surprise me.
around. So that would have been crapping on Reed, but then they cut that out of the episode. So Reed is not even significant enough to get shat on.
Interesting
Thank
viewpoint
you.
there. Yeah.
That viewpoint. I appreciate that.
I love
Definitely does
Reed
make
for
me
some
feel more
reason.
right. Not at all. No.
And one last
Reed-
thing, we got a good thing where Wes was talking about he wants his buddies at the fire station to be out on a call when this episode airs, because he is never going to hear the end of it about his dad beating him in an immunity challenge.
Nice.
Well, one insight that I had, I thought that, do you remember the last Blood vs. Water, Katie had such an invisible edit for most of the time, except for her toenails. And I think partly it was because she got rocked out, purple, white, or whatever. Maybe.
Yeah, they didn't really need to build her
maybe
an
same thing.
exit story.
Yeah, maybe same thing happens to Josh. So we'll see down the line.
Wait, what?
You mean
To
Reed?
read.
Having a tie vote later, who knows? Because if they have the couples, if they win out, all it takes is 2 couples against 2 couples, So,
Yeah.
Ty, I don't know if you have anything prepared. I know your top 3.
Let's see. As a shout out to Colin, I'm going to give Keith at number 5 because Keith has a lot more staying power than I ever expected, and he wanted me to be. And he's fun. He's stupid, but he's fun. So I will put him at 5 because he'll be around for a while. I will put Wes at number 4 because why the fuck not? Number 3. Jeremy, I'll put Jeremy there because if that side does somehow win, he might have legs. I don't think that will happen, but it's not like Baylor's going to fucking win at this point, so we'll put Jeremy on there. Number 2, John. Basically, the season is going to come down to John. Does John make the smart decision, or does John play into what is a brilliant strategy for the ginger guy and not necessarily a brilliant strategy for John?
Which, may I interject right there for a moment? I think part of the reason that this episode was such a letdown is that like the main strategy came down to the exact same main strategy like moment of last episode, which was that John and Jacqueline found themselves in the middle.
Sure.
So it was pretty boring and tired, and we'd already seen it, and we didn't need to see it again. And here we are seeing it, and here we are, and we're gonna see it again next episode. So
3 in a row.
Yay! Okay, I'm sorry. Back to time.
It's all right. It's okay, and it's okay to be frustrated with John because John is doing the same thing over and over again. But we can all take solace in the fact that ultimately John will pay the price when Ginger Gay eviscerates him because Ginger Gay, once again, number 1 on the power rankings. God bless Josh.
Now, do you think if John
Also,
does...
for the record, I would like to call out Stephen Lehman. Stephen Lehman, last night you said that Josh was such an attention whore or camera whore or whatever the case may be. Jeremy
I thought
hogs
he ate up a lot of airtime.
Jeremy hogs it up just as much.
Oh, he absolutely does, but I will admit that I like Jeremy's alliance.
Here's a follow-up question for you, Ty. Is that if John does get on the right side of the numbers...
if John gets
but
rid of
if
Josh
he's
next
so
episode,
flip-floppy, though, then will they be pissed off?
No, because he's nice. He's just like the nice guy. I don't see the jury staying pissed at him. I don't see the jury staying pissed at him. Particularly because, let's put it this way, I don't think John's going to let Jeremy get to the end either. If it's some sort of combination of John, Jacqueline, or John and Missy and I don't see people giving Missy or Baylor the victory. I don't see Jacqueline winning. Her strategy's been fairly barren up to this point. If John takes out Ginger Gay next episode, provided he gets rid of Jeremy at some point, he wins the game. Period. End of discussion.
Interesting
discussion.
Okay, so speaking of next,
it's really down to those two. As far as I'm
next episode, let's talk about the preview about more John and Jacqueline bitching about men versus women.
Well, there's a reason that Alec wasn't on my random bullshit power ranking this week because he was terrible in that preview.
Because, God, Alec.
God, he's those Drew brothers, I tell you.
He's Drew without any of the entertainment.
He is. At least Drew was hilarious.
That's true. So, any predictions? Which side will get the power?
I actually.
Well, we all know what I think.
I think Jacqueline might have a breakout for some reason, and
based on what?
I'm just feeling it. I like Jacqueline, and I'm biased, admittedly, but because John.
You also don't have a uterus.
I was about to say, is it for lack of uterus?
No, it's because John is my winner pick. But I think Jacqueline may try to step up, or I could be completely.
Let me repeat Jacqueline's thought when she was told that Jeremy was the vote. Well, that sucks. That's all. That's yeah. Woo.
Let me get a Jack. Who's gonna get the numbers next week?
I think that whole misogyny, sex war preview, is once again just gonna be Survivor editor's way of throwing us off.
Smoke screen.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this new twist or this new power shift is gonna happen next week, and then it's a short 5-minute clip in the episode of people arguing at camp, and then things go back to the status quo, and it's just gonna be Jeremy versus Josh, and. Yeah. I think something might happen where John and Jacqueline's position either through this like women versus men thing or something else, it's not as set in stone as it was last episode, because they can't have us going to this next episode where it's 100%, oh yeah, Jeremy's going to get voted out. Something's going to happen with immunity or people's minds changing that it's going to be in limbo again, but I still think it's going to come down to Jeremy versus Josh.
Here's a thought I just had, and maybe this isn't so PC, but if it is like a gender thing, maybe the gays will be able to sway the women a little bit better and get Jacqueline and them on their side.
Yeah, I did kind of find it hilarious that it doesn't make any sense, really, if you think about like how they act, that Alec is so in tight with the Broadway actors. When you consider how horribly demeaning to women and such that Alec has been. Not even. I think Alec's even worse than Drew. I mean, his whole rant with Baylor earlier.
I think Alec can just be categorized as a little shit.
Yeah. I was going to say, maybe it's because Alec is quite literally that bad that he has to, be relegated to.
Yeah. I don't know.
Cash,
no one else wants to.
What do you think about men versus women and who gets the power next week?
I predict that the men versus women thing does not really pan out too much, but I was predicting that there would be some sort of men versus women thing, because really, if you look at like Josh and Reed's Alliance, that's 5 guys. We have another 5 guys burgers and Alliance just right there. So that is a gender divide right there. I don't know I don't know how to predict who will get the power, but I am rooting for my winner pick, Jeremy, too.
Okay. Alicia, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a different thought, but it's definitely Josh versus Jeremy. Pretty much on the old original Koyopa, and we had Josh narrating pretty much everything that was going on in the tribe, and then over on Hunapu, we had Jeremy pretty much kind of talking about what was going on in the tribe for most of the season thus far. And I was just wondering, do we think that that's because both players are going to go pretty far, and this whole like Josh versus Jeremy thing is going to end up with them attacking, I guess, each other's minions instead of each other directly? Or what do we think is happening with that? Because I would find it weird that they would spend so much time building it up to just have like one episode, like next episode either Josh or Jeremy goes, and then...
Well, it's 2 episodes, really.
Yeah.
The big merge.
That Josh's minions don't have as much of a well-rounded edit as Jeremy's minions, if we're comparing the edits of the minions. Because as we see on, Josh's side, we have him, who has a great edit, and then we have Reed, Lesser, and then Wes, who, Purple West, basically. The edits on Josh's group are not necessarily as well-rounded. So they're either trying to build them up for later, or they're, going to be headed on out the door soon. So I don't know if there's necessarily in between.
That's an interesting thought, yeah.
It is, absolutely.
But you could always counter-argue that by saying how well-developed was Boston Rob's alliance in Redemption Island, when Boston Rob was obviously going to win and they had an entire season.
But I think it's a different story when you have an entire season rigged for you.
But see, also, just to counter that, Steven, maybe they're more well-rounded edits, so we get to know them better because they don't last as long.
Exactly. Right, that was the other side of the coin I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
it could be...
they want us to know them because they're going soon.
Yeah.
So they can make way for Josh's minions. So I don't think it's too early to call.
Yeah, we'll see next week. Anyone have any final thoughts?
I know a lot of this episode was me rambling on about how I was right. And I realize that maybe not everyone likes hearing that. And I would just like to make a promise that next week will be more the same. Go fuck yourselves, I'm right.
Watch Josh get voted off, then Ty, you're really going to have to...
I'm off the hook. I don't have to...
You are off the hook.
I am
Tyler
off the hook.
kicked off the podcast if that happens.
No matter what happens. Things are good.
All is right in the world.
All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. Thank you all for listening, and have a good rest of your week and weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Good evening.